Hi, Michael. Hi, Chad.
There, let's try that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, I was muted on my end.
I always do that. I forgot to upload the August minutes to the packet.
I found
So,
them.
We have a new administrative assistant who's awesome, but I kind of took for granted that she was going to do that, and obviously I didn't check with her and make sure she did. Oh well.
I found a copy, and so as long as no edits are needed, I'm okay. But what I found is a PDF. So if we need to make any changes, I'll need that Word doc from you to make
Sure.
changes.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, it was the agenda. Got it. Okay. If I can sign in, I might be able to just upload them to the packet, actually. Hi, Michael.
I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Chad.
Yeah.
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Chad.
I think for this particular meeting link, all participants join automatically muted.
Yes, they do.
I feel like they need to put the mute thing like over my face or something. I just
So you notice it?
Everything. Great. Okay, it's October 20th, regular meeting of the Conservation Commission. We're still meeting remotely due to procedures following the COVID pandemic. And if we could just, I think if we just do a roll call, I'll just go through your names. You could just say present when I say your name. Chad Rittenhouse.
Apologies. Present.
Quentin Kessel.
Present.
Will Wimet.
Present.
Meg Harper.
Present.
John Silander.
Present.
Aaron King.
Here. Present.
Miranda Davis.
Present.
Hey, Miranda, who's that?
This is Wesley.
Hello, Wesley.
He's now 2 months old.
Oh my gosh. How are you doing, Miranda?
Cute. Better. I can eat. I can drink. The world is a good place. I can walk without
That's
feeling
great.
lightheaded.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You both look great, so that's great. Okay, we have 2 sets of minutes. I mean, in the agenda you see our field trip minutes but we also have our August minutes, which Jennifer just sent out to us by email. So they're not linked in the packet, but if you go to your email, I'll try and take a quick look now.
I can share my screen.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to do that? That might help
Yeah,
everybody rather than chasing it
Yeah.
down.
Give me 1 sec if this all opens up the way it should.
And I apologize, Jennifer. Let's back up to the roll call if I could. I always forget to include you in the roll call, and I catch myself later, so
Oh, I don't think I need to be part of the roll call, but yeah.
just in
thank you.
terms of somebody present, just in terms of staff. present.
Jennifer Kaufman is present.
All right, sorry about that.
So here are the minutes, and I apologize that they did not end up in your packet. I'm still working with our new administrative assistant, and we are working things out. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at them. You probably can't really see them that well on my screen, but
I have no changes or comments to, no changes recommend or comments. I don't know if anybody else has any comments or changes.
Only to thank Jennifer for doing them.
Yes.
well, Chad gave me the template, so it was super easy. So
Anybody make a motion on approving the minutes as written?
I make a motion to approve.
Was that Aaron?
Second.
Okay. And Will seconded. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Aaron. All right, might as well go for a vote. Chad,
I'll abstain since I wasn't present.
okay. Quentin,
In favor.
Will, well, you seconded. Meg,
Yeah.
In favor.
okay. John,
Aye.
Miranda, I believe you're still an alternate today, so how does that work? Is she become a voting member just because she's present, or she's only a voting member if we need?
she's a voting member. If someone is absent, then she becomes seated.
Gotcha. So since we have our 7, okay.
And does Michael have to formally seat her?
Yes. Sorry, I'm trying to, yeah. So
We
who's-
have 7, which is our full slate.
yeah, so then she's remains an alternate,
An
so she's
alternate.
not seated.
Okay, all right.
And you would
No.
say member Davis is seated for absent member, alternate member Davis is seated for absent member whoever. That's
Whoever.
how planning and zoning does it anyways.
Okay, all right. So,
So
and,
FYI, I will
yes,
be
John,
absent.
I was getting there. I'm sorry, I was getting
Okay.
there. So that's unanimous on approving those minutes. We also have minutes from, I don't know if they're minutes or notes. Oh, this was our monitoring.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Um,
Really,
th-
nothing really
These
to
are
it.
not minutes, so I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
put those in your packet. We messed up with these minutes. So
Okay.
I'll have to put the minutes from the monitoring in your packet for the next meeting, or they're actually notes. So,
Okay, yeah, right. I was gonna say they're, yeah, just more notes than minutes.
Mhm.
Okay, no public for comment, I assume?
no public right now.
Okay,
I'm gonna let you talk about the conservation easement monitoring, and then I'm gonna try to get a hold of Derek Delay, who was gonna try to come to this meeting, and I'm not sure if he's able to, so if
sure,
you'll just bear with me.
okay. Easement monitoring, we did a pretty small, relatively easy site. That was Aaron and John and myself a couple of weeks ago. It was 3 different residential properties with pretty much with an easement over the wetland and back. So we just kind of walked the edge and found some, looks like somebody had demoed a patio or something like that and had put some of the material back there. And from what I gathered after talking with Jennifer is that she's been working with the landowner to get that stuff. It wasn't a lot, but get some of those things out. And we really couldn't walk some of the boundaries just because it was pretty wet and hard to get to the Mount Hope River boundary. And then some of the other boundaries were just soaked. So we really just kind of walked the the edge against the backyards. So I think we could probably do one in the next, what is it, mid-October? We could do one in the next 3 or 4 weeks if people are interested. We could do these small ones, or we could ask Jennifer if there's things that are larger or more high priority to go to, but.
Yeah, I'd do one, Michael, in the next few weeks. I'd be up for it.
Okay.
Either way.
The leaves are falling off the trees, so it might be a little easier.
I know. Would the weekend of November 6th and November 7th be a conflict or be too early for people? We could always go to the next one, which is the, wait, yeah, 6, 7, or 13 and 14.
I'm open in the mornings currently for both those days, not the afternoons, but.
Okay.
6th and 7th is better for me just because I might be away that following weekend.
Well, let's say we can try for November 6th that morning.
Yeah, if Jennifer can, if that timeline's okay for Jennifer.
Does that work
Yep,
for you, Jennifer?
I can put something together for November 6th. Derek July, just so you know, is going to jump on and just talk a little bit about the road work that's being done. And he has his wife has a 7:30, so he's on kid duty. But yes, so November 6th, and I'll choose an easement for you all.
Sure.
Okay, just as normal. The other thing I want to let you know is I'm in the process of reaching out to the property owner that had the road or the disturbance on their property. I know them personally, and I know that they're in France right now. So I'm just going to wait until they get back, and I think I'll start with a phone call and then take it from there. So we'll get that addressed. And I am working with Mr. Beebe to come into compliance. It's slow going. Enforcement and compliance is takes a lot of time
Yeah.
and it's slow going. So, but as long as we see a little bit of progress, we're usually pretty patient with people. So
I don't know if there's any priority to outstanding sites to monitor, or if I don't know. I mean, I feel like we've got a pretty good system now. If you want us to take on something that's more of a high priority, I don't know if they've been prioritized, but just to put that out there in terms of what you set us up with.
sure, I'll go through the list and sort of see. A lot of the ones I've been giving you are sort of the older ones that are, they're not even really marked very well. So I don't know that there's I'll look to see if there's a priority.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Just 200 something more to go. We'll be.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're making some good progress. Didn't get through. Okay, sorry, I'm multitasking here with Derek.
Yeah, I think we're ready if he wants to jump on before he has
Yeah,
to go.
he the thing didn't go through, the link. So I guess I invited Derek because there was some concern about at the last meeting about road work and when a permit is pulled and when a permit is not pulled. And so I just thought that we would have Derek come. You could ask him some questions and just sort of talk about their process. But and he should be jumping on any sec. All right. So, sorry.
No, while we had a moment, I was just going to ask a question that kind of impacts the easement monitoring and the site on Wormwood. I mean, on Mulberry. Like, there's an easement drawn on the site plans.
Yeah.
And
That's that is an easement that is owned by the person who sold. It's not a town easement. It's owned by the Dorwarts. So the town has nothing to do with that. That is just an agreement that they're responsible for monitoring.
And those kinds of easements are not even on the GIS layer, right? Because those are like
Right.
personal. Okay, got it. Okay,
Yep, that's just like a covenant you would have in your subdivision.
okay.
It's not anything that it's between it's a private civil matter between
Okay.
the landowner and the person who has that easement. So I see Derek. Derek, thank you so much for coming at this last minute notice. And so as I think I've discussed with you, Derek, in the office, and the commission has discussed, the commission had asked for a little bit of clarification on road work and how the town approaches that from a wetlands permitting. And I know that we had discussed that when it's just a repaving and minor modifications, generally the town has not pulled a permit. For the larger projects, like say the Hillendale Culvert, Mansfield City Road, there was a large culvert. That's when they did they pulled a permit, and that's just been the process that the town has used. And I had talked with Derek about maybe going through a list of the roads that are going to be paved or worked on in a given year, and so that you understand, so the commission and the Inland Wetlands Agency can understand what's going on, and then see if any of that would really trigger a permit. So did I summarize that well, Derek, or do you have anything to add?
You really kind of stole my thunder there. Yeah, I mean, basically what we try to do is, if we're going to, for the most part, our roadways are really kind of tied to a certain width. There's not much we can, without significant changes to either utilities, or if we're starting to break apart ledge on the edge of the roads, or change the way stone walls appear, that type of thing. We're kind of married to a certain width. We may normalize that width along the length, but I would say the more common thing is we actually remove impervious cover for the most part. I'd probably, refer to Hillendale Road. We probably removed about close to 2,000 square feet of impervious cover. Similarly on, and usually that just comes in the form of altering radii, where they've kind of encroached on areas over time just because of, various traffic, et cetera. I would say what we try to do the most of when we do pull those permits is when we're really impacting the stream bed, where we really are in the water for the most part. On most of the culverts, where we're basically replacing catch basins, replacing, really deteriorated pipe, where we're seeing a lot of sediment loading because there's no bottom to the pipe. Those are the instances. We really try to make sure that whenever we're in the water, vis-a-vis, Hillendale Road, Mansfield City Road, and we'll probably be coming before you to do either a Birch Road or I don't even think on Spring Hill we will really be in the water. For the most part, we're going to be replacing existing structures and replacing those with deep sump structures, which is an improvement over what we're currently seeing. So right now, most of our catch basins have no sumps in them, basically meaning that from the flow line or from the invert of the pipe down, there's no room for any sediment or any leaf debris or organics to be captured before it goes to the next catch basin. So that's what we're doing, is actually including or providing those sumps on each of the structures. So that's kind of what we're doing for the most part. If we are doing large culverts, we're using concrete culverts, primarily one from a passage standpoint of any kind of invertebrates, and also from a cover standpoint, that those provide a lot more strength and a lot less opportunity for any kind of flex in the roadway. So that's kind of the reason behind that. I know Chafeeville, there was some concerns about erosion on the road edges, and what we were seeing the previous roadway, we were losing a lot of road edges and creating a lot of riffles or little concentrated flow paths, just because the road was kind of getting depressed or eroded away on the riverside for the most part. So we ended up kind of reinforcing it with what we call tailings, or a little bit of stone. So it's really acting almost like a diaphragm filter, or a gravel diaphragm filter coming off the roadway. So I'd say we're actually doing probably a better job capturing any of that sediment that may come from some of the driveways from across the street between those various things. So in terms of what we're kind of looking at for next year, we're looking at doing Spring Hill Road, probably from Route 195 through to Clover Mill, and then a continuation, which would be by the middle school, and then a continuation from Clover Mill Road through to Mansfield City Road would be one section. And another portion right now we're looking through what needs to be done on a Gurleyville Road, or basically between, let's see here, Woodland Road through to Chaffeeville Road, but it may end up having to be broken up into sections depending on what the funding looks like next year. Right now, in the first part of next year, we'll really only be working on drainage to start off with. We're running the hydraulics and the hydrology for Spring Hill Road between Mansfield City and the middle school. The culvert that currently exists between Route 195 and the middle school, or Clover Mill Road, was done in the last 15 years. There's a pretty good sized box culvert that was installed there. On Gurleyville Road, we're going to have to be pretty careful. We're looking at some vertical realignments. There's a pretty bad blind curve that we want to do a little bit more investigation with. So we may have to go to alternative locations. So we're kind of shortlisting about 3 alternatives for next year. But I would say that probably one of the given ones will be Spring Hill Road starting next year.
Eric, for any of this work, are there certain activities that, or maybe Jen, you know this, are there certain activities that Inland Wetlands wants to review? Like if a project has stockpiling, or if there's a culvert replacement, or the road does change position, or there is new drainage added, are there certain things that they do want to review? Or it's kind of a case-by-case basis?
You know, as we're talking about this, I think it's going to just be a matter of moving forward, just have me and Derek sitting down and having a brief conversation to see, you know, what the work is, and then seeing if it would trigger a permit under the regulations. So I think that's basically what it will be. And normally they've had sort of this, you know, the larger projects, they've always come before the Inland Wetlands Agency, but you know, ultimately we have to go back to the regulations and then look at it with the Inland Wetlands Agency, I think is the short answer to all of this. Is
as my experience with some other towns that and I'm not advocating this, I think they kind of went a little too far with even just a repaving in the same footprint. They brought that before the Inland Wetlands, and that to me seemed like a lot of extra work for a lot of money for the town to spend. But there's certain places where, you know, there's culvert replacements or things like that I guess that would fall under the regs of whoever would be doing it.
Public Works does. I think what we need to decide as staff in the Inland Wetland Agency is what is maintenance. Like repaving to me is kind of like people don't come in for their driveway and have a license unless there's like, if they're doing major grading, then like if you remember the Quaker Meeting House, they came in for a permit because they were doing major grading. So that to me is a regulated activity. Maintenance, if you're just maintaining or replacing what is already there, to me that's not a regulated activity. So I think it's a matter of me as staff understanding what, and you know, Derek, I'll just basically right now they always come for the larger projects, the larger culverts. But if I can just understand what's happening and we'll just coordinate a little bit better on a staff level and to make sure that we're in agreement. But I think that's how staff should handle that.
Hi, Derek. I'm afraid I caused some of the problem. But this, for those who aren't clear, along Chaffeeville Road, they put a number of new drains in on the east side of the road with pipes that then go off into the west side. And I just noticed, I checked out the 2 nearest the bridge across Chaffeeville Road across the center. And those 2, they're basically new drains. basically will bring all, they just dumped almost directly into the Fenton. Again, there's a little riprap there, but you know, it's public water supply watershed, and all the salt and whatever that's used in the winter will go right down to the reservoir. And so I asked Jennifer, I said, I don't remember this coming before the IWA. And so that's what got us into this.
Yeah, and there's no trouble here. I mean, I think I look back to our original plans for that area, and I would say that there was a lot of hidden drainage that was behind barways and behind, you know, overgrowth that's occurred over time. I can't think of one instance where there was not a culvert, even maybe one that wasn't mapped, had occurred in one or two locations. But is it possible? I can't say it definitely didn't happen. There's a potential there. You know, so I think, like to Jennifer's point, if we did establish a new outfall, I would definitely want to bring that to her attention to make sure we're in compliance with those regulations. Again, I don't walk Chafeeville Road every single day. I know I got a couple phone calls from our roads department saying, hey, we've got a crossing here that wasn't mapped. Can you include that on the mapping? And that we did have one instance of that at least.
A crossing, you mean like a stream crossing?
No, I'm sorry. It was basically there was a pipe that was under the roadway that wasn't on our GIS.
Okay.
And there was an existing crossing there. Basically, there was a pipe that was underneath the roadway. It may have been, you know, either like a plunge pool that was on the, let's see, that would be the east side and bring it to the west. And for the most part, those were all existing crossings, because one of our concerns when we were getting involved in Chafeeville and similarly to Mount Hope was that we were going to encounter significant ledge. So one thing we did do was install some under drains, and what we've been seeing throughout town is a lot of the drainage served two purposes. A lot of the corrugated metal pipe was corrugated on top of that, or excuse me, perforated on top of that, meaning that there's small holes in the pipe to try to convey some of the groundwater out of there. But inversely, they also introduced more groundwater under the road surface. It was interesting. I mean, again, it was times that were in the 50s and 60s, and there was different ways of doing things at that point in time. We didn't have the luxury of having excavators. They may have been doing it with, you know, small backhoes at that point in time.
Well, I know you got to go in a couple of minutes. Does anybody have any other questions or comments or anything?
Derek and I did chat, and I think, you know, it's always good to kind of rethink these things. I don't think we want to have, we certainly don't want to have all this undue permitting unless we need it. And of course, when you're doing repair, sometimes you enter a situation where you have to fix it, right? You think it's going to be a repair, and then you're like, oh crap, it's going to be an improvement. So so that, I think it's just, you know, I think this is a good conversation, and we'll just try to keep each other informed and keep the Conservation Commission and the Inland Wetlands Agency informed. And
no, I think it would be very prudent to kind of maybe share some of the details that we use on each of these structures and materials and outfalls and that matter. This way, there's kind of a good, clear communication of what we're doing to the various commissions, being, you know, what we're using for plunge pools, materials, what are we doing that are improvements to existing catch basins. This way you kind of see what we're doing and what we're installing, and this way we're all under the same sheet of music. And to Jennifer's point, we want to make sure that, you know, what should be permitted is permitted, and making sure that we are trying to improve water quality at the end of the day. I mean, we shouldn't be doing this just to do it. We should be trying to make things better.
I think that goes back to Quentin's initial question about it. So I think that's a good way to wrap this up, because if we understand the techniques or the devices that the town is using, right, how innovative they are or diverse they are, then that gives us a better understanding of how stormwater management is being done. And then, you know, we work a lot at my company with green infrastructure, and then, I don't know, it just makes everybody more aware of kind of what the issues are and what the solutions could be. So,
Absolutely.
and not to slow you guys down either. The last thing we want to
No.
do is give you
That-
or the town more work to do also.
But I think the conversation happening the year before, and this is what we try to do with, planning these roadways at least a year, maybe even getting up to 2 years in advance. When we have crossings, we try to plan them 2 years in advance. Mansfield City Road, we were actually in front of the Inland Wetlands Commission. I actually came before in this body almost a year before the work was done. So we try to anticipate those because we want to be, good and cooperative people, and want to be good stewards of the land and also the waterways, and to Quentin's point, also the public watersheds. Yeah, thank you very much for
you've
everybody.
improved a lot of roads in town in the past 2 or 3 years. I would say it's really remarkable how much has gotten done.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
The crews are working really hard.
100%. Well, so I think we somewhat solved this. Better communication, just a little pre-meeting, and then we'll review what we think. If we need interpretations from the Inland Wetlands Agency, we'll get those. But I think I have a pretty clear understanding of what is a regulated activity versus a not regulated activity, and then we'll bring it through the different through the different commissions and through the process.
That sounds good.
Thank you very much, Derek.
Thank you very much for everybody. I apologize. I'm sure she told me about this meeting, and I always look to my calendar
No,
because
I'm
I can't
not
remember
sure.
everything. So I do apologize, and hope everybody has a good night. Thank you.
Derek. Take care. Well, just the last thing I'll say about that is if folks, I guess if folks see Public Works and are curious to know if it's, that feels like we're monitoring, but I've seen culverts put in, and I don't think that we reviewed them, but I don't know if that sort of input would be helpful to you, or.
Well, I think it is up to, I think we need all need, if they are doing a regulated activity, they need to come for a permit. So, and if I don't know, and a lot of things, the way Grant worked right in that department. So there's this sort of institutional way of how things have happened over time. And so I think this is good. It's bringing it to our attention. If it's a regulated activity, it has to go through the Inland Wetlands Agency, and the regulations state that it gets referred out to the Conservation Commission. And if, even if it's a minor thing, then it's an agent approval. If it's a large scale, anything within a wetland obviously has to go to the agency. So it's
just the way, I hate to encumber them a little bit, but it is just
no,
sort of the way it is. And
Yeah.
do you remember, this is years ago before Derek was even here, I think, but and you were the agent at the time, and they needed mud. I don't know, they came and dug that pond on Dog Lane. They just had an excavator and a truck and dug some of that fire pond out. And
so fire
I talked to you
ponds
about that. You're like, really?
the fire ponds are permitted as of right. So, and what was
Okay.
happening is, I always have there's a thing in the regulations called a jurisdictional ruling, and if you see, they don't come to the Conservation Commission, but timber harvest, agriculture, fire ponds, a few other things, some recreational things also.
But active fire ponds, not, is this still considered a fire pond here?
Most likely.
It
all of
probably
our-
has 5 gallons of water in it, so that could be a problem. It's just
if the
it's
fire
not-
department needs it for a backup water source, and they're,
they're gonna be hard pressed.
it's a fire pond, I think. So
Okay.
but all to say is I was never informed of that. So
It is a fire pond, and they went in with the backhoe and cleaned out perhaps 1/10 of it. So
Yeah, they got as far as they could
free up
reach.
that much more water. It used to go much further back. It was much deeper.
Yeah, it's filled in a lot. I'd say in the past couple of years, it's not as deep as it used to be. But that's
Well, they just went in with a backhoe and went as far as they could reach, which is only a small portion of it.
I have a comment or a concern about what Derek said, which is only everything he said was well and good, but then what happens to the apparent of the moment decisions when he described all of the places that they didn't know where there were culverts, and that the public works is on the road making discoveries and then just doing something right there. So that seems to be a potential problem, but it's not a predictable one. But that seems to be what you saw, Quentin. And then, do you still have concerns that, they're done with Chafeeville, if they are done or not, then they had to do something unexpected, but you're concerned that it's not effective and it may be harming, in the way it's operating, just dumping water in a way that doesn't seem, filtered or attenuated.
Well, he spoke of filtering, but I'm not sure how deep the riprap went, but it certainly didn't look as if they'd attempted to create dry wells or anything, between the road and the river. One of them was a pretty direct delivery to the river.
Right,
It's
so
tough. I
there's
mean, sorry, go ahead, Meg.
But that means that we still have sort of cowboy action, on the roads, and public works just doing whatever they think they should do when faced with this.
I was just gonna say, I think it's tough until like the state regulations change, or I think it's more state than local. I mean, most towns where I look at catch basins, I mean, they often go right off a crossing, straight through the bridge, or right into a culvert that's a stream that's being, sent under the road. And it's frustrating. I mean, it's common, but I don't think, I guess I trust Derek that they'll, he has experience in stormwater design and management going back even before he was with the town. So I trust that they're gonna apply best practices to what they're doing. And if they find something, they're replacing it with something equal or better. But the conveyance is still going right to the stream or the wetland. And I mean, they could always put in a better device to attenuate, but it becomes money and compliance. If they're already complying, then they're probably not going to push to spend more money on what's the best practice. You know what I mean? It's a hard situation, and I don't know. I mean, maybe your conversation with Derek will help fill in that contingency, Jennifer, about, well, if they do find something in the field, it's significant and they find it in the field, how do they address it? Do they come to you in the IWA, or do they just kind of
Well,
make
it's
what they
kind
think
of
is the
like
best decision?
we have all these, so these are existing roads. Most of them are in really bad disrepair, and there's like sheet flow going right into the wetland, and it's not being treated at all, right? So they're kind of probably, so they're making improvements, but it may not be the best. So if a new road's going to go in, that like these new multifamily developments, they have to meet the current regs.
Right.
So I think with an existing road, I'd have to ask Derek. I'm sure they have to make some decisions, but I guess the thing is that it's just keeping those lines of communication open. And I'm sure most of the time they're like, this is just a repair. They get to it, then they should just at least inform me so that I can inform the Inland Wetlands Agency of what's happening.
Yeah.
It's just
I have
keeping
two things
communication.
to say. One, people always behave better when they know somebody's looking over their shoulder.
Yes.
And that's what this session with Derek will have accomplished. And the other thing is, these guys are 10 to 100 times better than they used to be. I have a photograph. I have a photograph that I took after they dug a trench, perhaps 30 or 40 feet into a wetland on my property in order to drain the road. They never even asked me if they could do that.
I think
the last thing I'll say is that if they really are putting in catch basins that have a sump at the base, so they're catching all the road sand and litter, not really salt, but if the outfalls from those new concrete catch basins with sumps, then they might be discharging less into the streams. If the way Derek explained it is if I'm understanding what he explained, and if they're really putting in those types for each catch basin and improving them, then there's some level of improvement to what's being
I'd be
restored.
surprised if any of the earlier pipes drained much water. There were, right, so they have catch basins now on the east side of the road, the pipes going under the road to the west of the Fenton.
Yeah.
From the puddles that were there during rainstorms, right, they had a problem to solve. There may have been some earlier pipes under the road, but I'm sure they didn't transmit much water anymore, and they had to have been all
Yeah,
plugged up.
I mean, we have tough soils around. We have really tight soils. We have shallow bedrock. So let's say the road wasn't there, you still might have a lot of sheet flow from that local area getting right down into the stream. So the road now concentrates it, could add leaks and spills and stuff like that, could add sand and salt and put that in and sort of concentrate that into the stream. But places, I don't think a lot of soils in Mansfield can be pretty tricky to even absorb a lot of rain. So also, I think they're probably trying to do the best they can with what's already out there, and then with the nature of the sites that they're working in, and probably trying not to put it into streams and wetlands if they don't have to, I would think.
Many of our roads bisect wetlands. Look at 195,
right? Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, that's they just went right through them. And so I think they're dealing with a very imperfect situation, and they're trying, so not to say, always we can all do a little bit better, right? But we're not working with the best. We're probably doing best practice for retrofitting, but best practice would not be putting a road through the cedars, on 195 bisecting a wetland, right? That never would happen now, but it did.
So Quentin, I think you make a really good point about just now they're aware and having the conversation, and if communication is going to go forward, then that's what we get to just see what projects come around and what we hear about going forward.
Yep.
Anything else on that? Thanks for bringing that up, Quentin, so we could start that conversation with Derek. That's good. Okay, so on to new business item B. This is application W1443-1 for regulated activities associated with single-family dwelling on Mulberry Road at the intersection with Wormwood Road.
Yes, so this is a revised, so this is a new application, but it came before the Inland Wetlands Agency back in 2005, and then it was renewed again and expired in 2015. And so per the regulations and the state statute, it now has to be a completely new permit. I did go back to the original application. The footprint of the house is larger, but the septic system from the original application is smaller because the health code has changed, and now they only require smaller systems. I guess the systems are more sophisticated, and they can handle the wastewater in a smaller area. I'm not sure. But anyway, so this is a single family home on the corner of Mulberry Road and Wormwood. And as Will pointed out, there is this conservation easement, and I spent some time researching this because I was like, what? Did I miss a conservation easement on the GIS again? Or is what's going on here? And I looked in the land records, and I called the person who used to own it. And I was like, I don't have this conservation easement. And he said, oh yes, there's a conservation easement. And then I found it finally, and it was between the Dorwart Family Trust and this property owner. So it is not a town conservation easement. We do not need to worry about monitoring this. So the closest activity to wetlands is this footing drain, which is 45 feet from the edge of wetlands. There is there are about 3/4 of an acre of activity within the upland review area, but there's very little grading. And the majority of the activity is pretty far from the wetlands, so.
Usually when there's an easement, there's somebody to monitor an easement. Now, what is this about it being a doorward easement?
He calls it, I mean, basically anyone can put something on their plan. He calls it a conservation easement, but he's acting as like Joshua's trust. It's an easement between him and the property owner. The town has nothing to do with it. It's not ours.
In other words, it's not truly an easement and that there's nobody to monitor it.
Well, he's monitoring it.
Yeah. And for how long? Excuse me.
But it doesn't say, I think it in perpetuity, but I'm not sure what's going to happen when, I mean, no one lives forever, so I'm not sure what will happen, but that's.
I'm not sure how that happened, but it should be discouraged in the future.
Yeah, this wasn't a subdivision. This was their free cut, so we wouldn't have been able to require a conservation easement anyways. So this was just their first cut prior to Mullwood East and West, and we do have a conservation easement on those other 2 portions of that Dorwood land that was subdivided. Yeah. So, but this was the free cut, and he put that on.
Jennifer, could you go back? You said something about have septic guidelines changed or requirements for the sizing of systems? Has that changed? Or you said something about
that's not
that.
something that I I defer to Eastern Highlands Health District on that, but they have told me the sanitarian that works with the town has told me that is true. So you'll see, for example, probably the one you've been looking at is the one on the Rafelson lot, and that also is smaller. According to THAD, and it meets the health code just because they're more sophisticated. So they go to the. I usually just defer to the health code because I'm not a sanitarian and I don't.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, maybe I'll pull that and we can include it in a future packet from DP. I mean, it would just be interesting to understand. So often we're worried about significant impacts, and if systems have been changed or improved, just based on what we always look at, it would be interesting to know kind of what the new expectations or the new technology is.
I mean, from the regulatory activity, it's less disturbance. And if the system meets the public health code, then I'm looking at there's less disturbance in the upland review area because they have to install a smaller system and it's meeting the health code.
Right. Yeah, no, just for my own curiosity.
Yeah.
I was curious what they have now.
It was the red dash line there, the upland review area, and that's 150 feet from the nearest wetland area. Is that what that red line is?
So this red line, everything like right at where my cursor is, if you can see that, is the upland review area. This kind of like rectangle thing is not the upland review area. So the stockpile is outside the upland review area. A portion of the driveway and a portion of the house is outside of the upland review area. But
The foundation drain is the closest then down at the bottom there. Is that right?
Yep.
To
Yep.
wetlands.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I know this property very well. I wish I could have been there the other day. I walk by it every day. And I'm just a little curious too, just how it comes to our attention. So Jennifer, you're saying that someone did they surveyed the wetlands prior to the initial plan being drawn, and so we're still using the initial delineation of the wetland?
So yes, we are.
Yeah.
And
And what year? is that? Do
we have a surveyor saying that he's certifying that this is, the items on the survey are substantially correct.
Well, and just so I can understand how this comes to us, of course, is because it's drawn on the map. But when I go into the GIS and I look at the town wetlands, it's not actually, the town wetlands are drawn very differently than the boundary that of this person. So I'm just curious as to understand the discrepancy there. And like, obviously we trust the surveyor. What he's drawn is actually true to what's there, not so much what's on the town wetlands GIS file.
So I think
Correct.
the town I never use I only use the town GIS wetland layer as a guideline. So if
Okay.
I have to review all zoning permits, right? So
Right.
I get a zoning permit for, I don't know, around Stearns Farm, where it's all kind of like where in an area that I know is high and dry, or an area that I know is wet. I'm going to look,
Yeah.
I always take that layer off and I look, because I can look at the aerial photo and I can tell better what's
Right.
going
Right,
on.
exactly.
So it's the projection's off, but I use it just as a guideline. You can,
Okay.
if you put the streams and the water bodies on, you'll see sometimes the water body is like, like over on the dry land. It's just the way the projection works. So these were field delineated by a wetlands, a soil scientist, put on the map, and then Ed Pelletier, the surveyor, put them on the map.
Or the first law of geography is that all maps lie. That's why you have to be cautious about interpreting wetlands that the town gets from some other GIS layer or soils for that matter.
Right.
Yeah, the soils data is you cannot trust. We would never trust that.
No.
For a large development. For a shed or a deck, I can go out and look with my own two eyes, and I'm not doing out there with a soil, I'm not doing a soil core or anything, but I can tell basically where the wetland is, and that's what I use for my measurement. For a single family home like this, where there's 3/4 of an acre of work being done in an upland review area, that they need, I tell them they need a wetland scientist. So,
Yep.
And they need a survey.
But the delineation was done fairly recently.
No, it was not done fairly. I'm sure it was done back in 2005.
Okay, that's still relatively in terms of what could potentially change at the site.
Yeah,
That's okay. Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion on this application? Then we can choose to discuss it a little more if you wish.
I was out there.
Have any comments?
I think if we
was
can
out
make a
there.
motion and get it seconded, John, then we can have further comments.
I was on the field trip. I see no significant negative impact on the nearby wetlands.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, John. All right, so any further comments or additions or requests to add to that motion?
As long as they remove all that barberry, I'll be happy.
Oh, okay.
It is close enough. It's in a regulated area, so the motion should include the usual sedimentation and erosion controls.
Yeah, that's right. That's all I was going to say. As long as proper ENS are implemented and maintained. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or changes to the motion? Let's go for a vote. Chad, how do you vote?
Oh, I had a hot mic for a while. Sorry if you heard my keyboard going. I'm yes.
Will,
Yes.
Meg,
Yes.
and Aaron,
Yes.
and Michael, yes as well. So that passes unanimously. And let's go to our item C, which is application W1613-1 from CMC Stores SPV-LLC for a permit to conduct regulated activities for a proposed multifamily residential community at 497 Middle Turnpike and 3 parcels fronting on Cedar Swamp Road. This says we're going to table this.
Yes, you're
Okay.
tabling that because we did have, I just wanted to make sure folks had this information so we could start looking through it. But so we had the field trip and I met with Land Tech, who is we've hired again after an RFP to do the technical review. So the public hearing is not until December 6th. So you'll be reviewing this at your November meeting and Land Tech will be there at that time.
Okay.
But as with all applications, there will be a back and forth with a few corrections. And so I want to make sure that that happens before folks take the time to really look at those things. So
Okay.
Can we hear from the field trip, or does that come up when we discuss it?
you can hear from, Chad and Quentin were at the field trip. If they want to make a report, that's fine.
Well, it's just, I don't remember, they said the golf club went in there in the 1990s. And I don't remember it coming before the inland wetlands then, but somebody went in with a bulldozer and had a lovely time creating this golf course, and it will make some of the things a little bit complicated. What was it, Jennifer, you called it the tee box at first? And but it was they pushed up a huge heap of soil.
I thought the tee box was a sophisticated engineering term that I wanted the engineer to describe, because clearly I'm not a golfer. So I asked him to
Yeah, but many cubic yards of the soil were moved around to raise this tee box in quotes up quite high. And they plan to basically restore it perhaps a little more to its original configuration. And there's a worrisome part, because they will be draining a rather large area into the wetlands, and they spoke of, but of course we'll have a spreader there or something of the sort.
Yeah, they seem to have a number of subsurface infiltration practices and then a large surface practice. And so it'll be interesting. And then they've got a couple of crossings or modified trails that turn into crossings. So it'll be interesting. Are they presenting for us, or can they present that we can tune into?
Yes, they will be coming to your November 17th. I think it's the 17th.
Okay.
Like to just add something because I was present on the field trip as well. There is a wetland and then a pond that appears to have been constructed, and there's some form of a damming or weir structure for that pond. And quite a bit of discussion revolved around a road is going to pass between the dam, and it's going to be culverted for a bit under a road and then pop out on the other side. There was also note about supplementing that pond with water to maintain it as a water feature year round, because currently it fluctuates quite a bit due to a rather small drainage area. Just something for us to pay attention to. It is considered a regulated wetland, even though it is constructed. And it kind of raised my eyebrow, this idea of putting water into the wetland to maintain it as a water feature when it would have seasonally dried. And so
If it is
just something
seasonally
for us to
dry,
keep
that would qualify it as a vernal pool.
Yeah.
So the question is here, I didn't see vernal pool done in this in the wetlands report at all, but and in fact, there was no inventory of any plants or animals there. There could well be amphibians using this as a vernal pool. So it could be a de facto vernal pool.
I don't know that would be a vernal pool, but I can absolutely ask Chris, our wetland scientist that we have
Atlanta.
on call, and they can do some further investigation if they need to.
I'm going to be absent unless I have particularly good internet service on South Georgia next month. I'm going to be following the footsteps of Ernest Shackleton at the time of the next meeting, so I won't be there. But I do have some number of different comments because I spent some time looking through the wetlands. I don't know whether I should summarize those and send them on, even though I won't be there. I, have looked at what they presented and have some questions.
So John, absolutely. I would 100% summarize those and submit them to me, and I can get them to the applicant and our and to Land Tech so that they can comment and make sure that they can respond to those. Generally with these larger applications, the public hearing is continued, and so we have it that it will be continued to the first meeting in January. Which means that you may have a chance to also discuss this in December.
I'll be back.
Okay. I don't know. I don't think the applicant may, but I don't think that Land Tech will be there. But so getting your comments to me sooner rather than later is much appreciated.
I forgot I was going to say. Anybody else have anything more to say on that item? We'll be visiting it a lot, it sounds like. Okay. Item 6, report from members. Anybody have a report? No. Quentin, is that is the Water System Advisory Committee, is that still an obligation of yours?
Yes, and there's a meeting tomorrow night. Next week on Wednesday, I think. We had a very curious thing on the Yukon application where Yukon bought the land, and because some questions arose there, and Connecticut Water Company on a technicality ruled that this commission couldn't speak up because the meetings could only be called by, special meetings could only be called by the committee at a previous meeting. It was strange, almost to the point of my saying this is totally useless. In other words, if I were to find a fault of some sort in something that Connecticut Water Company was doing, there'd be no way for me to bring it to the committee's attention. I will remark on that next Wednesday. So this coming meeting is to discuss, what is it, Jennifer, the Havens project at Four Corners?
Yeah.
I
I don't know your agenda, but that would be I would imagine.
Yeah, no, that's the agenda, I think. And this would simply be a request for water. I'm sorry, I remember on the one that Yukon bought the land out from under. I think it was Meg Reich pointed out that there's a certain allotment to the pipeline. And that if that application were approved, there'd be no water for the Havens one, the other Four Corners one, to say nothing about this new one that we're looking at.
I don't know that there's a water allocation. I think that I think Connecticut Water is very happy to sell us as much water as we want to buy, or not us, but a developer, but we do have a sewer allocation. And that's always been, because Yukon controls the sewer, that's always been but maybe I'm sure that, obviously water is limited, but I don't know that there is a water allocation.
I think if we go back to the original agreement with the town, university gets so much and the town gets so much. And that town allocation is close to being fully committed.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just thought that number was so large. It seemed like it would take a decade or more to reach that allocation, but I don't remember.
Well, that's the point that Meg Reich brought up and we were totally muzzled.
You were muzzled at the Water Advisory Committee?
Well, she tried to call a meeting to discuss it.
Oh.
And a special meeting, and they wouldn't permit it according to their rules.
Wow. So you're going to ask that tomorrow night? I mean, Wednesday night?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, well, that would be good to know. I know we have our water pipeline overlay, and I'm sure we have some allocation, but my understanding was that it was quite I don't hear it talked about very much. I hear about the sewer allocation talked about all the time, but not the water allocation.
Of course, they go hand in hand.
Right.
But it seems to me the university wants more water going through their sewer system. And, yeah, but the incoming amount of water, I'm pretty sure there was an allotment between the town and the university. And that we are, with all those three developments, had they all gone through, I think we would have exceeded the limit.
Thanks.
Well, keep us posted, and I'm not sure how many years you've been on this committee, but if we need to talk about I don't know, passing the baton to somebody else, just putting it out there. Any other reports or communications? We'll just go to the next version of reports. Jennifer's included for us the notice on the Kakiewicz meeting coming up on November 6th.
If we do have a small budget, and if any of the members would like to attend, it's a virtual meeting. It's not very much money. If you let me know, we need to register you. We can't reimburse you, but we could fund some registrations for that virtual conference.
And we just scheduled our potential easement monitoring for that morning.
Yeah, and then
But I haven't looked at the agenda yet. If anybody looks at the agenda who was going to be on the monitoring and feels like it's a conflict, we can talk about that and sort that out. They are good. The virtual conferences I've not been a fan of, so I'm not sure I would attend, but they have something really good. Maybe I'll change my mind.
I'm just going to I always just do the legal portion because it's something that I need to keep up to date on, but.
Is that the one with Janet Brooks?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So item B is the Parks and Preserves winter programming.
Actually,
oh no,
that's messed up. I think that is so there's the Last Green Valley mailing, and then the next one is so I just wanted to make you aware that if you click on the attachment, that we did, I worked with the Parks and Natural Resources Committee to identify large landowners, and they wanted to do kind of soft diplomacy, quote unquote, and just let them know about a program that's available through the Last Green Valley. It's funding for forest managements to make your woods bird friendly, and it's a program that they've been doing for a few years now. We do have some Mansfield properties already in the program, but Ryan, we drafted a letter for Ryan's signature, Ryan Aylesworth, our new town manager, and we just sent this out to about 80 landowners. So just wanted to make you aware of that.
That's great.
And then, then now we can talk about the Parks and Preserves stuff.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Michael. And so we've got three events scheduled for the winter: a winter tracking, a guided snowshoe that Michael's going to be leading, and a person called Henry Fry, who's friends with, or who's a colleague of Brian Connolly, is doing Winter Trees of the Moss Sanctuary. And he also did a native plants walk for Walktober. So those are the three events.
That's my PhD student, incidentally.
He's what?
He's my PhD student.
Oh, well, good. Then you can, I've never met him. He's very, very easy to work with and willing to do some walks. And he just sort of goes with it. So he said he would do this for us. So.
Yeah.
I really like these walks where you're getting people who know stuff in to guide the walk. I think that's a really, I mean, I don't know, that's always the way they are, but I feel like it's kind of been elevated the past couple of years with some of the people you've been doing. I'm not including myself in that description, but I think they've been really, like I went on Brian's when he did one in Moss Sanctuary, and that was fantastic. And I just think it makes them, makes these places more exciting and interesting to people. So it's great.
So, and
Jen, I will-
Aaron has done a great bird walk, and just for the spring, that our brochure deadline is way, like our winter brochure deadline was in September. It was like a few weeks ago, maybe like, I don't know, mid-September actually. So the spring programming will be coming up very soon. And I'm always looking for someone to do a walk. It doesn't have to, I promote it through the Parks and Rec brochure. Aaron did one last spring that people really liked. So, if you just have an interest, it's just a way to get people out into the parks. In fact, I was going to see we need an archaeology walk. Meg, do you think Quinn would be interested? I don't know where he is, but I thought of him.
I don't know, but some Harper should be able to do it.
That would be, just anything that piques your interest. It can be anything, and it can be any time for any length. So,
and Jen, I will do one, I swear.
I know you've got a lot on your plate, I think. So I'm going to send out an email for probably in the next month or so for spring walks. And so just put your thinking cap on, and I'd love to have, some Conservation Commission members lead walks.
There's one other communication. Jennifer sent us an email with if you could just explain the development activity in Mansfield story map, Jennifer.
Yeah, sure. So with all of the development that's happening, and with this new platform, this free platform, ArcGIS Story Map, we've decided that we're gonna, basically Linda's doing this, and we have on our planning, on the Mansfield Planning website, I'm trying to pull it up here, just a story map with planning and zoning applications or pre-applications. So I just think it's something that you all may want to just keep an eye on, because it's kind of a 30,000 foot view of the development that's happening, and then you can drill down and get to the application materials. Some of them don't have to do it all with wetlands, and so you're not seeing them, like the rezone down at Southern Mansfield for 2 drive-throughs. So things like that. So I just, want to make sure that you're aware of that, and it does get updated probably at least once a month, but whenever there's a large application that comes through.
So that's what I was just going to ask. It's not every application. It's more the larger ones, or how?
Yeah, like we wouldn't put this Abbott application on there, or like a modification or something like that. But if you look, if you look at that, let me just pull it up. You can see sort of the larger things where basically it's things where we are having a public hearing. So let me just pull this up again.
Withdrawn. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Where are we here? There we go. So it was last updated October 5th. So we've got things. There was a scenic road alteration on Dog Lane that was put up there. We have the Haven project up there. The CMC stores that you just talked about. There was a pre-application meeting for a multifamily development off of Daleville Road and Middle Turnpike. This was the earthwork associated with the new single family dwelling. That's when there's a certain amount of grading for filling or grading, they have to have a special permit. So that's why Linda put that there. Propose amendments to the zoning regulations. What is this? There's been quite a few. It's freezing on me. So anyways, you can go through that, and I'm going to go on my other computer and look at that.
But these are projects where something is being constructed or the site's being redeveloped?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So they're major applications.
So Frog Bridge wants to build something? It's hard to
That-
tell from that story map what's going to happen.
So let's see. So Frog Bridge services down here. That's way down there, right? Oh, that's a so that's a special permit because it's a change in use in the Eastbrook Mall. So there's nothing
okay.
outside
All right.
happening.
Okay.
It's so
Great.
that's why
I
it
thought,
wouldn't get
all right,
referred to you.
thanks.
Yeah.
Great.
Um,
Good.
but yeah,
One stop.
so-
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to keep track of all the stuff that's happening. So this, I think this is a good public information tool, and I'm glad that Linda has done this. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure you're aware of that. There's one other thing I'd like to just talk about in communications, that we own a property off of Dodd Lane that is sort of surrounded by federal property. We got this. This is called Southworth Preserve. It doesn't have a sign yet because we are doing a new signage master plan, and I'm waiting for those guidelines to order the sign. But the goal of that was to get people using public transportation to Mansfield Hollow. So there's a recreational trails program grant round that is open. We were going to submit our own application, but CFPA has agreed to add our kind of sub project to add signage at the bus stop, kind of wayfinding to direct people to all of the trails in the Mansfield Center area, as well as installing a flasher signal and a crosswalk at the new school. So to connect the Nipmuc Trail at where Southeast Park is to that section of the Nipmuc Trail, to make that a safer crossing. So we're putting that in, and CFPA is doing a great job helping us. So fingers crossed, we will get that application. We'll get that.
That's
funding.
awesome.
It's great.
Yeah.
That makes me think of something. Our trails used to be in the Mansfield GIS set of layers.
Mhm. They are not on the GIS. I actually talked, as we were doing this project, I asked Derek if we could get those back on, because they were so inaccurate that I had them take them off, because they were just crazy little squiggly lines. Like the Nipmuc Trail was correct, but so
Yeah.
now we've done a good job GPSing all the trails. So I need to get those added again.
Because I went to the site where you've got them all, the sort of the GIS trails, and that's like on a separate website, right? I've definitely been on a site where like all the trails are clearly GPSed, and
Yep.
but it's all the other information that we have on the Mansfield GIS to interface that with the trails would be
Yes.
really terrific. So if it's at a place where it can be added back in, that would, at some point, that would be great.
We
Well,
do. We just need to send the data over to our GIS, whatever contractor, or whatever.
We have a
Well,
really good
Jennifer,
town
maybe-
GIS for the other ones I look at. It's got a really good, like really comprehensive set of data that most towns don't have this amount of stuff on their town site, their GIS.
Jennifer may be aware of the fact that one of the other things that Henry Fry is doing is developing a Nature RX, which includes a
You sure
network
you
of
sure?
trails for the town of Mansfield as a demonstration data set. I don't know if you know about that, but you can certainly ask him about his work to digitize trails. And actually provide a narrative and include that as part of the Nature RX project.
Yeah, I did. Well, I wasn't sure if I met with him, but I met with Cindy Jones and
Well, we're actually co-supervisors of Henry, so
Henry must have been at that meeting with me, and I didn't
Yes.
even realize. But
oh, he's just a graduate student, so
yeah, no, because she had a couple grad students. But one of the things, let's see, I can share my screen again. I'm also working on.
Her project is Nature RX, so.
Yeah, and that is actually interfacing with Connecticut Trail Finder. And so I'm working with them as well, but it's not as fast as I wanted because I just don't have the time to, but I pick away at it and I add all of our trails to this Connecticut Trail Finder, which is going to be the all trail. They're trying to do like an official all trails for site for Connecticut. So you're here. Oh, we have quite a few. So you can see there, Joshua, I've been working with Joshua's Trust, but you can see Owensmere, their preserve, and it will have this information. And eventually, and we have some of these up for the town trails. I just have to keep pushing forward with that. So, and I know Nature RX is also working with Connecticut Trail Finder, John, that I've seen them.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
But for the current trails, the best map is All Trails, which does show most of the trails, but not 100%, probably close to 80, 90%.
Yeah, I think at the last meeting, I showed the new website that I'm trying to do for Mansfield, but so we have a slightly better website for parks through Parks and Recreation. So we're getting there bit by bit.
Is that where the trails map is? I know I saw it somewhere. I don't need to see it now, but I just can't remember how I found it last time.
Yeah, it's probably there.
It was good. It was color coded, like the blue trails were blue, and then you could see how our trails would connect to, Joshua's or
Yeah.
CFPA's trails.
I think what I'm trying to, are you talking about this one?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
And I just, yeah. I want to use Connecticut Trail Finder. I want that to be the kind of go-to one-stop shopping because it's there's too many sites out there.
Yeah.
So that's all I have.
That's all I have. Anybody else? Our next meeting tentatively would be November 17th. Well, unofficially we'll have a special meeting on November 6th for our easement monitoring. So hopefully some of you can make it out for that. I think we usually started at 10 and it takes a couple hours.
Yeah.
The more people that come, the longer it takes. No, I mean, it's true, but it's okay. It's good. We're getting it done. So that's good.
It's fun.
It is fun. Yeah.
Chad, you good for the minutes?
I think so. I chased down the Mansfield CT development activity. And Jen, I just want to check with you. Is it okay if I put that link in our minutes?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, membership. One thing just to think about. You are down at least one member.
Yeah.
So just if you think of some good folks, just we can have the town manager interview them and get them appointed.
So I had mentioned before, James Knighton is new faculty in Department of Natural Resources and the Environment. He's actually a watershed hydrologist by training. He was renting in the town and I was waiting with held breath. He bought in the town as well. So So I will approach him and solicit some interest in the committee. If no one objects, I'll pursue that.
That's great. What, James Stinton?
Knighton.
Knighton?
Yeah.
Chad, he's in his first official year or second year, pre-tenure?
Second year.
Second year. Okay.
He started in August of 20 as right as COVID was full swing, and so he's never he's never had a normal semester on campus, nor attended a faculty meeting in person, which I think sometimes is a blessing.
Jennifer, the town's not moving in the next couple months in that direction, are they?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
You know, we went for like 3 weeks in person meetings, and then Delta hit, and so I don't know.
Delta Plus now I think is on the horizon.
Yeah,
that's what Delta
Yeah.
Plus.
Yeah,
I
it's
haven't heard that.
even more
Yeah.
contagious than Delta.
no, you're
Yeah.
Seriously?
That's what viruses do.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had a walkover meeting in Barrington, Rhode Island a few weekends ago, and I can't tell you how glad I am to live in Mansfield compared to anywhere in Rhode Island right now. Because no one wore a mask anywhere in Rhode Island at all. You know, it was actually astonishing, and every place was. You couldn't get to a restroom anywhere. You couldn't drive by every fifth car had a F Biden sticker on it. And then when I wore a mask, I got heckled for wearing a mask, or just got the really dirty looks. And I'm thinking, I just want to go home, where I don't have to worry about going in anywhere because of the mask mandate. It was just an astonishing difference.
I don't know of any other towns that have a mask mandate.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be some, but I don't know of any.
Yeah, like some of the Litchfield counties or Fairfield counties towns do have one, like my sister's town, Ridgefield, does, but not many do. And it was just astonishing. And I have to say that when you pull in at the extreme eastern border of Connecticut, where basically it's Rhode Island, and nobody's wearing a mask, Well, it is. They even get the Providence Journal. They don't get our, Connecticut newspapers. But it was really a culture shock. I'm speaking as an anthropologist, to see basically no compliance. It was just like the Wild West. So made me grateful to be in a town that feels safe.
Yeah, I was in New Hampshire a few weeks ago. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I was in Wyoming 2 weeks ago.
Wyoming.
Oh, Wyoming.
And
it's a little bit cooler.
We live in a very special bubble here.
We do. That was made clear to me. I just did not realize how bubbleized we are, but I'm glad to be back in my bubble.
When I first moved here, the person I was working for said, they said the nickname for Mansfield is the Democratic Republic of Mansfield. And I was like, well, that's fine for me. I can work with that. So
well, I just got back from Kentucky and Ohio, Southern Ohio, and people were pretty good about wearing masks.
Wow.
That's interesting. I was there late.
And there was no
June
mass
into
shaming
July.
whatsoever.
Yeah, the mass shaming thing. When I got my booster, because I got a third booster, and I went to Wyndham, and there was a nurse there who had just relocated. She was originally from Connecticut. She had been living in South Carolina, and she relocated because her community was just refusing to wear masks, and they were really, really awful about it. And the last straw for her was going into a Target and watching for the second time a person with a mask have the mask pulled right off their face by another shopper. And she's like, that's it, I'm going back to Connecticut. I'm not going back. I can't do it anymore. And nursing jobs are easy to get. So she came back up to Connecticut. But she described it's like anarchy, and that it's fine if you don't wear a mask, but ripping one off somebody else's face is just
That
I
assault,
can't,
like,
I can't, it's an assault, it is an assault. You know, so
insane.
all sorts of stories in the crazy world, yeah.
So yeah, I hate, you guys are still being recorded and we probably need to make a motion to adjourn. And then,
We do,
I
but
move we
we're ending on
adjourn.
a positive, meaningful note.
All
yes.
right,
I move we adjourn.
I'll second that. Thank you, Quentin. 8:27. It's good to see you all. I know we've had a lot of meetings where everybody hasn't been able to attend, so nice to see everybody. Glad you're
Yeah.
back, Miranda.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your sweet baby.
Yeah,
Yes.
congratulations.
Take
And,
care,
yeah,
everyone.
see you. See
Goodbye.
some of you on
Goodbye.
November
Good
6th.
night.
Yes.
Good
Good
night.
night, people.